The North Dakota U.S. Attorney is caught right now red-handed in the biggest corruption case in U.S. history. I'm the person who has the evidence against him, and you're getting ready to see a bunch of it. You're also getting ready to see a group of his co-conspirators sabotaging me. They are sabotaging me to prevent me from being heard in the nation's top investigation. I caught the ringleader and every U.S. attorney that cooperated with this fraud. They have limitless ways of getting back at the whistleblowers, but I'm still busting them 7 ways from Sunday. Today, you're going to see the criminals exposed on the half shell. Our new acting attorney general, Todd Blanche, just publicly announced a sweeping investigation, the formation of a new division that is going to expose both Drew Wrigley, our last U.S. attorney, and Nick Chase, our current U.S. attorney, for massive fraud, waste, and abuse. This is federal racketeering by the federal authorities. The spy agencies robbing the taxpayers blind, just like you heard the spy say on the introduction to this video. The new acting attorney general, Todd Blanche, just made it crystal clear that the U.S. DOJ is going after the fraudsters. In this case, his own man. Let's give him just a minute. This is huge. Clip 1, please.
Now, this isn't new for this department. We have a storied history of combating fraud and bringing criminal actors to justice. But the department has never adopted a comprehensive and coordinated approach to investigating and prosecuting fraud against taxpayer dollars and taxpayer-funded programs. With over $1 trillion at stake every single year, threatened by increasingly sophisticated and opportunistic fraudsters, the time for this comprehensive and coordinated approach is now. And so today, I'm proud to announce in greater detail the creation of the National Fraud Enforcement Division.
The creation of the National Fraud Enforcement Division. Notice he says that fraudsters are using increasingly sophisticated methods. The criminals that I caught certainly are. The criminals that I caught are protected by corrupt agents and prosecutors in the FBI, DOJ, and NSA. These people are using the techniques and tools of the spy agencies to rob us blind. These are the same people who use these techniques and tools to attack our president, the leader of our country. The top criminals I caught in this massive fraud, the top criminal I caught in this massive fraud is the former U.S. Attorney Sally Yates that set up the racket which ensnared our last 2 U.S. attorneys here in North Dakota. Sally Yates is also the U.S. attorney that conspired with Jim Comey to classify Trump as a Russian agent. In other words, FISA is the spy agency tool that was used to both overthrow our country and rob it blind. Now, listen to Todd Blanche restate that his mission is to prosecute the criminals I caught. Sally Yates, Drew Wrigley, and Nick Chase on still another angle. This is a 1-minute long clip. Listen to Todd Blanche very clearly state that it is the president's responsibility, his right, and his duty to lead this country by making sure that they are investigating this case to the full extent of the law and using all the resources they can to do so. I'm the eyewitness. I am the most important resource. Clip 2, please.
I'll take a few questions.
Thank you, Mr. Acting Attorney General. President Trump has made no secret of the fact that he wants to see his perceived political enemies prosecuted. So now that you're in this position, how are you going to balance that relentless pressure with this administration's promise to end the weaponization of this department?
Well, look, first of all, we have thousands of ongoing investigations and prosecutions going on in this country right now. And it is true that some of them involve men, women, and entities that the president in the past has had issues with and that believe should be investigated. That is his right, and indeed it is his duty to do that, meaning to lead this country. And so I do not view this as pressure. I do not view this as something that is going to keep me up at night, except to make sure that we are investigating every case that we have to the fullest extent of the law and using all the resources we can.
Wow. There is no person in this country who attacked Trump more flagrantly than the person who signed the FISA warrant against him, classifying him as a Russian agent. Like I said, Sally Yates told me that she would, and I have the evidence to prove that she was using the FISA program to run organized crime, fraud. I have not been heard in any of these investigations because our U.S. attorneys in North Dakota are caught in the sting operation that I set up to catch Sally Yates. The two biggest issues in our country are fraud and the grand conspiracy. I'm about to prove to you that these two issues are interconnected and inseparable. They are conducted by the same person, for the same reason, with the same tools. In other words, the people that attacked Trump did it because they knew they couldn't control him, and they didn't want to be held accountable for their careers of robbing the Citizens Bank like no one's business. Todd Blanche's stated mission is their worst nightmare. Now I'm going to show you the key players who prevented me from being heard in the investigations leading up to the grand conspiracy. I made previous videos stating that the North Dakota spy teams attacked me to prevent me from being heard when Sally Yates was called before Congress to answer for signing the FISA warrant against Trump. I just found some of those videos, and now you're going to see some of those today. Right now, Nick Chase is trying hard to push a narrative that I'm crazy, that I need to be locked up. He's trying very hard to start a narrative that I'm delusional. He has a group of deep state puppets that are trying to help him push this narrative so that he can put me away where I won't be heard. The criminals like Drew Wrigley and Nick Chase, who are caught squandering taxpayer money, have to finish what they started, or else they'll go to prison for treason and federal racketeering. I want you to think about this. The corrupt U.S. attorneys that are caught using the tools of the spy agencies to run fraud are also caught obstructing the top national investigations. They have to silence me in order to avoid the consequences of their actions. That's what you're going to be watching today, how they conspired to silence me for the last 17 years, here in North Dakota for the last 8 years. That's under Drew Wrigley and Nick Chase, the last two U.S. attorneys in North Dakota. You're going to watch their bullies conspire to sabotage me. You're going to watch U.S. spies cut off my communications so that I don't know what's going on. I don't know that Sally Yates is being called to testify before the U.S. Senate Oversight Committee. You're going to see videos of me documenting that my internet and phone are cut off repeatedly and that my job is sabotaged. I document that I'm being sabotaged with the clear message to shut my lid and stop spilling the beans on Sally Yates. That while Sally Yates is being called before Congress to answer for her treasonous actions. There is no witness against her because Drew Wrigley and his puppets are sabotaging me. So I'm going to go back to August of 2020. This is the time when I'm working for a trucking company in Stanley, North Dakota. This is also the exact same time that Sally Yates is being called before Congress. The specific date, August 5th, 2020. Sally Yates is called to testify before the Senate Oversight Committee, What I'm going to show you is that while Sally Yates is lying to the Senate and the FBI can't find any witnesses against her, I'm being silenced, sabotaged by a man named Brian Ryder and another man named Huey Ulberg, my supervisors at work. But wait, it's going to get even better. They are going to pass a covert message letting me know that if I keep spilling the beans on Sally Yates, that if I don't shut my lid, I'll be unemployed. They make good on that threat because I won't be silent. I've talked about this before, but I just found the video 2 days ago. During this time, I'm experiencing multiple ruthless attacks and provocations. Huey Ulberg, Brian Ryder, and Brian Reel, with Brian Reel present, call me into an office where Brian Ryder tries to provoke me with an extremely lewd provocation. He tells me that we taught you everything you know, and continues to provoke me by reciting comments and issues that are taken from a conversation when I stung Sally Yates. These comments are not something that I'm going to put on this broadcast. They are lewd. They should be used to indict Ryder. The courtroom that hears this riddle explained will likely find it hilarious. Still, this skit that he repeats came from the U.S. attorney who had the video of me stinging Sally Yates. While Sally Yates is being interrogated by the U.S. Congress, I'm documenting multiple harassments from my coworkers and supervisors. I get numerous drug tests from this trucking company. One of them requires me to run on foot across town, barely making it before they lock the doors and revoke my license. I catch multiple coordinated attacks on my career and on my communications devices, my phone and my tablet. This prevents me from hearing what's going on in the news. It prevents me from being able to do my job efficiently. I don't even know that Sally Yates is testifying before Congress because of this constant cyber attack. Now, let's get to the evidence. I made the videos and took the pictures you're going to see at Saller's Federal Well on Monday, August 17th, 2020. I see the trap that's been set for me, and I don't step in the trap, but instead I report it. So I'm a crude hauler. If I come across a spill, I have to report that spill. If I load over it and leave, then I'm the person that gets blamed for the spill. So I come up on a spill at Sal Federal's well. It's a very clever setup because there was a spill here before, but it's a little bit bigger now. So if I hadn't reported this and refused to load over it until I got permission, then that little enlargement of the spill would be blamed on me. I would be blamed for a spill. I'd be sent home and it would go on my record. Or worse, they were trying to make an example out of me, remember? So this is my text message to Huey Ulberg whenever I come up on this spill. Graphics 1, please. As you can see there, I've got this mess, this is a spill, and I don't do anything with it other than just send a text message saying, it wasn't me, I didn't do it, can I load over this? I wait for quite a while, and later the phone indicates that that text message never went out. As you can see, it's got that failed exclamation point there. Now I've taken another screenshot at that same time showing that I'm wearing a bracelet protecting myself from bogus accusations. Let's get graphics 2, please. So if you look there in the corner, the lower left-hand corner of that, you'll see that wooden bracelet around my wrist. I'm literally having to wear a bracelet that states I'm an unheard eyewitness for John Durham's investigation. Just to give you an idea of how long this harassment's been going on. This way, police can't just show up with some bogus accusation and lock me up. They have to saw off a bracelet that says, I'm an unheard eyewitness for John Durham. Clearly, I'm trying to be heard. And today I'm exposing the people that are silencing me. Finally, Brian Ryder responds to a text that I send him. Invite to Ferris, please. Finally, Brian Ryder responds to a text that I send him. He asked if the spill is worse, pretending not to know it's a setup, wanting to know why I haven't loaded. I didn't step in his trap. But listen, all y'all, I'm going to point out that these guys are setting traps for me everywhere. It's sabotage. Clip 3, please.
And Brian was asking about it, whether it looked fresh. Well, there were splashes on the tanks, way over there on the water tank and up against the wall. It's pretty obvious that I keep getting sent to the places where there's a problem, and that if I don't document it, it'll be blamed on me. But either way, I want to make sure that this isn't blamed on me. I've also got an outstanding drug test. Ridiculous that I've had so many of them, but I've got an outstanding one. I've got to deal with that too.
So you can see I'm pointing out that they're documenting, that they're sabotaging me in many different ways. In that shot, you can see Salers on the tanks. You can see that the name of the well is Salers. It's Salers Federal Well. I'm pointing out that these guys are sabotaging me, laying traps for me everywhere, and that I have to document all of those traps. Brian Ryder finally pulls the trigger on the conspiracy. This is the video that I make a short time after I talk to Brian Ryder. He makes good on his attempts to destroy my career. Clip 4, please.
Okay, I just got off the phone with Brian Ryder. He said that I left a tank hatch open. Now, I was reporting that, and he said, yeah, somebody else just called and accepted responsibility for it, or found somebody. He said 30 seconds before I sent this to him, somebody from last night sent him a picture about it. So that's already kind of funny. But he said, yeah, I just got a call that this guy south of the river on Continental, they know he's hardcore. They said, but he went to the well I was at, Simmental, and said the hatch was left open. I told him, I said, Brian, I've checked it several times. Several times. I check it when I'm at the top, I get to the end, I look back, and I look at each one of them individually, okay? To make sure they're not just closed and latched. He said it was closed, but it wasn't latched. He's kicked you off all the well sites that he's in charge of. I don't believe it. I don't believe it for a second. But I told him, I said, so all it is his word against mine. You can't go back and check a video. He's like, I'm not even going to question. I'm not going there. He's like, there's no reason you're the only person there. Well, obviously I wasn't the only person there. That guy was there, and he went up there. As a FISA victim, I told him, I said, somebody could have paid him $50,000. He said, no, I've known Travis for a long time.
So I tell him that. He knows that. I'm a FISA victim. I'm a witness against Sally Yates. And somebody could have paid this man $50,000. Brian Ryder knows that Sally Yates is on trial before the Senate. I was sent home for 3 days because of this sabotage. I didn't fall for the spill at Sal Federal Well, but that's what they're pointing out to me. You're still spilling on Sal Federal. It was leaving my hatch open that they accused me of, not shutting my lid completely. I quit. I never came back. This next video is made at in that same truck before the end of the day. This is me putting the pieces together for you as it happens in real time. This is me telling you about the skit a person acted out days before. A man I refer to as a hobbit because he's built like a hobbit. I call myself a hobbit too. Anyway, this hobbit acted out a skit to warn me that if I didn't stop talking about Sally Yates, I would be unemployed. Clip 7, please.
The different statements I've made in the past, I'm sure there's going to be some stuff that ties in with that hobbit. Because I've run into him a couple times. I think the second time he told me that story, if I didn't document it the first time, the second time it got to be important. Now, if I've got that documented already, that's going to be really key, putting these people away. And
that's going to be really key to putting these people away. What I've got right there is all we need to put these people away. There's a whole lot more to this. Many fine details and much more documentation, but I'm not trying to confuse the issue. These guys knew Sally Yates was on trial before the Senate, and they sabotaged me so bad that I wasn't able to keep up with the headline news and come forward as an eyewitness. Huey Ulberg came up to me and asked who I was a witness against. He knew what he was doing. He was testing me to see if I would continue to spill the beans on Sally Yates, or whether I would seal my lid. We're going to show a lot more of Huey's sabotage in a minute. These people sold out their country for whatever benefit they got. Now, Brian Ryder punishes me severely for this fabricated accusation that I failed to completely seal my lid on a previous federal well. He's essentially crippled my career with this company. As I mentioned, I received a skit. The skit was a driver telling me that he was banned from the same customer by the same pumper because he said something to the pumper. He called the pumper a dick or detective in the spy language when he pulled off his tinted eye protection to make eye contact with that pumper. In this skit, the pumper called Brian Ryder and banned this driver not for his comment, but for leaving a lid open. The driver said he didn't leave the lid open. The skit is clear. You can watch more of that documentation by going to Ferris Broxton on Rumble. That's video number 55. Sabotaged, signed for by Sally Federal. Dick is for detective. If you want to see more about how Sally Yates instructed me to read these skits, you can watch that in episode 1 of season 2, Skin Diving with the Sharks. I decided to make this podcast today instead of episode 2 about Dead Man's Island, because what's going on here in North Dakota should be at the center of the 2 top national news stories, both coming from the acting Attorney General Todd Blanche. I recorded numerous other attempts to sabotage me by these same supervisors while I was doing extra work to help them with their job. I was making lists and notations to address common problems, a cheat sheet, if you will. I called it the Underground. I was making a tool that would help new drivers with this company, including myself, solve their problems without troubling their supervisors. I was just sharing my cheat sheet that I was making for myself, basically, and doing it in a fashion that would help my supervisors. A guide to the common traps associated with the wells, and so forth. In other words, I was helping Brian Ryder and Huey Ulberg while they were sabotaging me. I know I sometimes come across as a common idiot. I was recording them the whole time I was doing this. One day they called me up to their office. Here, Brian Ryder provoked me with the lewd comments intended to remind me of the conspiracy agreement from when I stung Sally Yates. This clip is going to be cut short in the interest of decency. I'm just playing it to show that I know Brian Ryder has bad intentions. In other words, when he sabotages me at Sal Federal Well, I document at that time that I know he's involved in a conspiracy, a racket from when I stung Sally Yates. His statement proved this in front of Ulberg and Reel. This clip is taken just after the last one at Sal Federal Well. It's a very strong part of my testimony that proves they've been conspiring before this attack. Clip 5, please.
That's the wrong, it's a different time zone. This phone here is going to be on the 1 o'clock time zone here. So yeah, it says 1:13. But so I got out of the truck to go load, but here's what's so relevant about it. He's like, no, I know him. It's not like that. I wouldn't do that. This is the guy here. Feels like honeycomb. Okay, him talking about it.
What he's talking about there is he's repeating something from when I stung Sally Yates. This is the comments that he made in the office with Brian Reel. It should put Brian Ryder behind bars for a very long time. I only need one video to prove that Huey Ulberg was sabotaging me. Here it is. Clip 8, please.
So Huey's here. The truck's out here. This guy's so freaking caught. He's in there in front of that semi in his truck. Yeah, I don't know if he's in his truck, but that's his truck. I just got out of the shower. Here's the thing. That's his job. His job is to educate. I documented that really well just a little while back here today. He wants me to type up this thing to help other drivers. I've gone through this. This is so ridiculous. Reel had to call him today to get the password to get into that email. You have to have that email to keep the system running right.
All right, let's take a closer look at the 3 words that'll get a conviction on Huey Ulberg from this text message. Picture 3, please. So what that says there is Mr. Huey Ulberg. So when Reel says never to log out of email, that means don't press the X on the Gmail on this screen, right? And he says, right, I guess. If you do that, it will wreck your day. None of the programs you have to use will function properly. He knows that. And there's no way he can convince anyone that he doesn't. That's his job, to teach that to all the drivers. This is a video documenting the way I caught Huey sabotaging me, and I figured out that he was doing this. Clip 6, please.
Okay, we made this point just a minute ago. This is the critical, most important point not to miss. That in all of my making the underground for Huey and Brian, more for Huey than anybody, as I constantly went through and asked about this updating these computer programs, and all my notes will show this, and all the times I've asked, they've hidden the fact that would save them the most hassle. The fact is, you don't log out of email. If you log out of email, none of your programs are going to update, and everything's going to go downhill, and the driver cannot log back in. This was no accident. They saved this as a special weapon. They executed it as best they could, and then they tried to start a fight over it when I handled it properly. Again, it wasn't until I broke out this camera right here and made a video with Brian Reel saying this is for the DOT, this is Brian Reel putting a new ELD in the truck to show we've serviced it, done all this stuff right, okay? Because right then, Brian realizes I'm going to be caught if I put a new ELD in his truck and I don't make sure that he's logged into email. Every supervisor in this company knows that. He put the blame squarely on Huey and Ryder. So it's the other 2 guys in the field.
That's right. I have a video of him putting the blame squarely on them. That's one time they got caught real bad. Brian Reel seems to be a little more upright than the other 2. He was present during the Cantaloupe meeting and harassment. He concealed the fact that they gave me trucks that were known to have many, many problems. This was his job, and I don't think he was trying to terminate his career. I think he's the guy that should be given the first opportunity to come to Jesus in attorney speak, to come clean and testify against the others. I have hundreds of videos like these. These guys can get really foul really fast. I'm leaving out much of the strongest evidence in an attempt to keep this podcast as clean as possible. Picture 4, please. Many of these videos have me showing that the internet and phone connections are blocked. I'm just putting this picture up to give you an idea of what it looks like me sorting through these videos. I have more than you can imagine. The evidence I'm presenting is just a few little pieces I've picked out of this huge haystack of evidence. I'm unable to get the phone service or internet service that would allow me to realize Sally Yates is being interrogated by the Senate. I'm done with that, thanks. So I quit this job. In other words, I'm being sabotaged. My phone won't give me the news. I can't use my electronic devices. I'm being sabotaged at work. So I quit, where they're harassing me so bad. I quit on August 17th of 2020. This is just 3 days later. I'm still not able to get the news. Even my XM radio is blocked because Sally Yates is headline news. This is a video of me showing that some spies are able to keep me from watching the news. I want to show you the time and date real fast. Watch for it. Clip 9, please.
So I'm trying to apply for a job again.
So that's August 20th, right? Not even, 2 weeks after Sally Yates went before the Oversight Committee. I'm still not able to use my internet. I'm not able to get on and get the news, and I'm going to show you a video that I just happened to make. I didn't know what I was missing, but it was so obnoxious that I made a video clip documenting it. This is that clip for me trying to get the news on August 20th, 2020. Clip 10, please.
So let's just go Fox News. You saw it popped up right there for a minute and then went away. It's like somebody's able to just wipe out the connection with a moment's notice. See there, that's what I've been getting. Can't reach this page. The connection was reset. So it's like somebody is just sitting here in real time, boom, 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 resetting my connection, watching me, and preventing me from using the internet. Why would they do this? Because they don't, the spies that are responsible.
I know it's the spies. It's obvious they're doing this. They've been doing this to me for years. They did this to me when Sally Yates first got the FISA warrant against Trump. And I've already put videos of that all over the internet. Why would they do this? Clearly someone is sabotaging my attempts to get a job. What I didn't realize then was that spies were blocking my internet on all my devices. They didn't want me to realize that Sally Yates was on trial before the Senate. So I made a video of doing the same thing to my XM radio, keeping me in the dark. They were conspiring to keep America's most important unheard eyewitness from coming forward. They sold out our country. That's why we have this grand conspiracy investigation. So when you hear all these news agencies saying Trump's still trying to go after his enemies and make up and there's nothing there and there's no witness, yeah, right. What's going on here is your U.S. attorneys are criminals here in North Dakota. Your news agencies aren't covering the most important news. At that exact time, Sally Yates signed the FISA, at the exact time that Sally Yates signed the FISA warrant against Trump in November of 2016, I videotaped a severe sabotage by spies. When Sally Yates was under the gun of the U.S. Senate judicial oversight, I was again severely sabotaged by spies. The reason we have this grand conspiracy investigation going on to this day is because the spies are conspiring to overthrow your country. This is clearly the biggest threat to our security and the security of our country. I hope that you will follow this case. I hope that you will share it with your friends. Next week, I'm going to try to get back to Dead Man's Island and pick up where we left off on season 2, Skin Diving with the Sharks. You guys have a great week. Thank you.